I'm back here today with the final in our series of how to use the Palazzo de Wealth. So in the first two videos we covered the overview of what it is and why we designed it that way. We've got our foundations down here, our portfolio, what we're going to put in our portfolio there. We've got our measuring tools here, and then what that does for you above that with what goes into your portfolio, how we decide that, what it does for you with choices and legacy and that sort of thing. So we've got foundations, pillars, measuring tools, and then all those things enable you to do what it is that you want to do in property and investment. So that has been covered already. What I'm going to talk to you today is about this section here, which is the metrics and what we do with that. So this one here, we've got cycle, we've got market, and we've got action. Now, they've been designed that way specifically because this is the overall economic and macroeconomic cycle. This one here is local markets, and this one here is actions. What do we take? So I'm going to show you the tools we use on how we decide what we do on them. So the first tool here is the overall macroeconomic cycle, and so that goes up in there. And then for that one, we use Philip J. Anderson's 18-year property clock, right? So that's it there. You can pause the video after it's finished and go back and have a look at it. So that's that one there. Look him up, Philip J. Anderson, 18-year property cycle. He's on cyclestrendandforecast.com.au, and I think he's on businesscycles.com or .org. Anyway, that one there, I'm not going to go through how Phil's designed that clock. It's pretty special, but it's a 24-hour analog-faced clock. So you start at 12, you go round. When you get back to 12, you jump up to 13 and you go round the clock again. There's notations and stuff out there and what goes on in the cycle. A smaller version of that fits in your Palazzo de Wealth up there, and that's the overall market cycle, right? Goes there, tells you what's going on. The next step is, now we know what's happening, what's going on. We want to know what's going on in the local market cycle. And for that, there's some great tools around. And in Australia, we use Hayward Todd White and their clock, which comes out monthly. You can jump on, get a free download of that every month. It's a fantastic report they give us, and you can log on and get that for free. And in that, they take suburbs and towns around the nation. They put them in where they think they're going according to data on their clock. So it's got peak of the market, declining market, bottom of the market, rising market. So you can see it goes around. So peak, falling, bottom, rising, right? It goes like that. And they put towns around there. So that's a really good tool to say, okay, well look, let's pick a town on here. Okay, there's Newcastle. So Hayward Todd White says that Newcastle is a declining market at the moment. Now, if you live in Newcastle, you might know that. If you don't, you can look into data that supports that or not. We've got approaching bottom of the market. Illawarra, Sydney, they say is approaching bottom of the market at the moment. We've got down the bottom, Ipswich, Melbourne, Perth. Perth's been down there for a little while now. Rising markets, that sort of thing. We've got Adelaide, Barossa Valley, over here on Starter Recovery, Cairns, Gladstone, Mackay. So that is what Hayward Todd White does. The thing is, that tells you where those towns are and not much else, right? So it's a really good piece of data, but you don't really know what else to do with that. So what we did is we designed our own compass. So bearing in mind, we've got Phil's clock up there, Hayward Todd White clock up there, right? So we've got the overall market, the local market, okay? And then we've got our compass here, right? You can see that. It's called the Xenium Action Compass. So Zach, as we like to call it, tells you what to do in each market. Now I've got a bigger version up, so I'll chuck this up here briefly. Okay, so we take data points from Hayward Todd White's compass. So let's say we've got Newcastle. So at the moment, Newcastle's at 3 o'clock on Hayward Todd White's clock. So over here at 3 o'clock on our compass, it says falling market, okay, which is what it says here, declining market. So we would be looking for discounted buying, and we'd be looking for how fast that's falling, where it's going, and whether it's worthwhile we're looking for some positive cash flow and construction to start taking place, because that's what that is. So we enter a declining market up here once the declines have happened and we can get a good deal. If we can get a good deal, of course, I only buy if you can. You snatch and grab. You come down here, we construct and do some positive cash flow. And over here we end up on the development phase on the way out, where we ride the wave on a market cycle on the way out. So right now Newcastle's saying 3 o'clock, it's down there. We'd be looking at buying at a discount. Down the bottom here, we'd be focusing on some areas with positive cash flow in those areas. So we're looking at Brisbane, Perth, Toowoomba, Melbourne, Ipswich. Now, just because they appear on a HCW clock doesn't mean we're going to buy there, but it does mean that we need to look at that market and what, if anything, we're going to do there. And that's where our research team comes into it. So what we'll be looking there is we'll be looking at positive cash flow, because we know that the next stage of the market cycle is a start of recovery. So if we can get positive cash flow now, we're going to get more positive cash flow out of it as it recovers, and there's a pressure on rents. So that's what happens there. So at a rising market or a recovering market, we'll be looking at, say, some small projects. Now, there's not much to choose from here this month on the start of recovery, because they're all a lot of Queensland towns, and there's one WA. So we've got Mackay, Gladstone and Cairns, Townsville, Whitsundays. That whole region has been hit pretty hard. So they're talking about their start of recovery. So that's over here. So this is where we're choosing, like, okay, if we're seeing the momentum happen and it's going to go to a rising market, do we get into a duplex project? Do we do a development project? That sort of thing. That's what we look at that stage of the cycle. Once we're over here, we're definitely into the development market. So we've got Adelaide, Adelaide Hills, Barossa Valley, Hervey Bay, which I wouldn't do anything in, Launceston, Shepparton, I don't know. So that's over here, and that's development. What we don't want to see is this one here, Hobart, right? So you can see that, say, like at, 10:30 on a clock. So we're over here. On our section here, we're saying we need to be out, right? We need to be out of that market at that time. We're not getting in, we're not doing developments, not doing anything, we're getting out. And we're out until it starts to drop again, and we decide whether we're going to get in and do a discounted buying. And so that's how it works. So the cycle goes round, we buy at a discount, we load up with some positive cash, we can land bank and get ready for development. As we go around, we get development, we get out. As it gets too hot and everyone's going in, everyone's talking about Hobart at the moment, oh, it's going well, it's coming to the top of the market, we want to be getting out. And we stay out at that time, from when everyone's sort of hyping up and getting in to when everyone's jumping out and saying, we're never going to get in, that's horrible. Well, that's when we start to look to get in again. And that's what our compass does. So when we look at that and we say, okay, we've got Phil's overall cycle there, we've got a local market update there, and that's Zach. Our compass sits in the middle, which does actions. You can see we've got our pillars of discounted buying, positive cash flow, asset banking, land banking and development. Which one are we doing where? That's what we do. We look at those pillars of what we're going to do. We take a look at this data here from some of those resources that I just showed you, and then we decide what goes in our portfolio, not before, right? So we've got to go through that process. Only then does something meet the criteria of potentially going to our portfolio, and we look individually into that property at that time. And then that's from that portfolio we build on choices, legacy, etc., etc. So that's it. That's how we use the Palazzo de Wealth. That's how we use our measuring tools to get the best result for you. And you need to join Xenium, our program, that you'll be able to see that every week. We have live updates and live meetings that talk to you about what's going on. And one of the big tools on that is, of course, Zach, our little friend Zach there that we designed, and that's our Xenium Action Compass. So if you want to know more about that, hit us up in the comments below, and of course I'll put a link to join our free Xenium membership group in the comments as well.